Storm chasers. Outside, a long siren sounds. On the radio, an announcer says the National Weather Service reports a tornado moving east of Johnston at 40 miles per hour. If we heard a warning like this, most of us would do what we're supposed to do. We would head for shelter indoors. We would retreat to the basement or to an interior hallway or room such as a closet, staying away from windows. We would use blankets or pillows to cover our bodies and wait for the storm to pass. But a small group of scientists and researchers would head in the opposite direction right toward the storm. These people, known as storm chasers, pursue tornadoes in specially equipped cars, vans, and trucks. They hope to arrive in time for the worst of the weather so that they can collect as much information about the storm as possible. Other storm trackers stay close to home. These trained volunteers, known as storm spotters, keep a close watch on the weather in their own community. They pass along storm information to local weather agencies. Sometimes even sophisticated radar devices don't pick up storms, and the trained eye of the storm spotters can help to save lives. Listen closely to weather reports on your local TV stations, and you may hear the forecasters talk about reports they've received from storm spotters. Tornadoes can strike at any time of the year in the United States, but they are generally most common from late winter through midsummer. Hurricane hunters. Storm chasers don't just follow tornadoes. Hurricane hunters take special training and fly planes right into the center of hurricanes and other severe tropical storms. Outside, heavy rain and high winds batter the aircraft. Inside, the noise is deafening. Despite the roar and the roller coaster ride, the crew carefully collects information on temperature, air pressure, and wind speed and direction. This information will be used to help predict the size, strength, and path of the storm. After flying through the solid ring of thunderstorms that make up the wall of the hurricane, the plane enters a place of near silence, the eye of the hurricane. Sometimes in this calm center, the hurricane hunters see blue sky, sun, and even stars. But the plane still has to go back through the menacing storm before returning home. In fact, most hurricane hunters make at least 4 trips through the storm before returning to land. The hurricane season runs from about June through November in the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Pioneers of storm chasing. Roger Jensen, a North Dakotian, is believed to have been the first storm chaser. "I was born loving storms," he once said. Jensen began chasing storms in 1953 and continued to do so for the next 40 years. During his lifetime, he took thousands of pictures of storms. A scientist named Howard Bluestein had an early introduction to storms. In 1954, when Bluestein was 5, a hurricane blew the shingles off the roof of his family's house. When he grew up, he decided to make storm study his life's work. Today, Bluestein studies storms as a researcher and professor of meteorology at the University of Oklahoma. The movie Twister was inspired in part by Blustein's work. Hurricane hunting began in World War II when a U.S. Air Force training aircraft flew into the eye of a hurricane on a dare. To prove his plane's strength, American pilot Colonel Joseph Duckworth told the British that he could fly into the eye of a hurricane. After doing so, Duckworth pioneered the science of hurricane hunting. Hail, lightning, winds, and traffic accidents? Being in a severe storm is dangerous. Storm chasers can be struck by flying debris or by baseball-sized hail. They can be trapped by flash floods or downed power lines. Fortunately, most professional storm chasers keep a safe distance from the deadly storm center, usually 1 to 2 miles. They respect the power of the storm. Lightning is also a great risk to storm chasers. Lightning strikes injure scores of people each year. The risk rises for storm chasers who spend more time than the average person in the most extreme weather that Mother Nature serves up. But the riskiest part of storm chasing is actually driving to the storm. Crashes happen because drivers are hurrying to reach the heart of the storm and are looking at the sky instead of the road ahead of them. Blowing dust, heavy rain and fog, hail, skidding on wet pavement, running out of gas, and getting stuck in mud can make the chase difficult and dangerous. Hurricane hunters face a different set of risks because they are flying an airplane through the most powerful part of a storm. Violent winds can shake the plane severely, making it difficult to fly. Equipment inside the plane can get tossed around, causing possible injury. The wind can also damage the aircraft, and a sudden blast can send a plane plunging into the ocean. Storm spotting and storm chasing should never be done without proper training, experience, and equipment. Hurricane hunting is an activity for experts. For most of us, the best way to experience storm chasing is by watching a TV, documentary, or movie. As long as there are storm chasers filming the most dramatic weather events, we can sit in the safety of our homes and movie theaters and comfortably experience nature at its wildest. Whiteout. The Great Blizzard of 1888. A slow start. On March 10th, the weather up and down the East Coast was clear and unreasonably warm. It was so pleasant that people headed outdoors to enjoy the warm temperatures. Some families even went picnicking. But while spring appeared to be knocking on the door, winter wasn't over. The blizzard that was later named the Great White Hurricane began as a drizzle on March 11. The rain grew heavier overnight and quickly changed to snow as temperatures fell below zero. A ferocious wind developed. People in small towns and big cities from Maryland to Maine woke up the next morning to heavy snowfall. Surely they were surprised by the sudden change in the weather, but many went about their lives as usual. Farmers braved howling winds to tend to their animals. Children trudged to school. Workers sloshed their way to their jobs. Among those who braved the blizzard in New York City was future President Theodore Roosevelt. He slogged through the snow to keep an appointment with a librarian, only to find she had stayed home. Buried under snow. By noon on March 12, many areas of the Northeast were already buried under a blanket of snow. In some places, huge snowdrifts covered trees and the tops of houses. Families were trapped in their homes without food or fuel, hungry and cold. Trains were stopped in their tracks. Fire stations couldn't mobilize to fight fires. Communication became impossible when telegraph and telephone lines snapped under the weight of the snow. High winds helped to ground or wreck more than 200 ships. But the blizzard wasn't finished. For 36 hours, snow continued to fall. When it finally did stop, the blizzard had dumped between 40 and 50 inches of snow in Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey. It took weeks for people to completely dig out. In all, hundreds died from the storm and the cold. The Great Blizzard of 1888 has taken its place in history as America's most famous snowstorm.